7. The Reaper Death Seal. The Reaper Death Seal, also known as Shiki Fujin, is one of the most extreme and irrevocable techniques ever introduced in Naruto, giving the ability to directly attack and imprison the soul rather than the physical body or chakra network, making it uniquely lethal even among the most powerful jutsu in the series. Classified as a forbidden technique due to its guaranteed fatal cost to the user, the Reaper Death Seal is not outlawed because of instability or lack of control, but because its activation demands the caster's life and soul as payment, ensuring that it can only be used once, and only in situations where no alternative solution exists. Although the identity of its original creator is never explicitly stated, the jutsu is strongly associated with advanced Fuinjutsu traditions connected to the Uzumaki clan, the same sealing lineage that produced techniques capable of binding tailed beasts and manipulating chakra at a conceptual level. And its invocation of the Shinigami suggests that the technique originated from ancient ritualistic practices that were later formalized in the shinobi sealing methods. Unlike standard summoning techniques, which rely on contractual bonds and chakra constructs, the Shinigami is a literal death god that exists partially outside the physical world, appears only to the caster and the target, and cannot be interacted with or resisted through conventional means. The target soul is sealed within the body of the summoner, represented by a swirl pattern on their torso that is similar in appearance to the 8 trigram sealing style. The jutsu makes its first canonical appearance during the Konoha Crush arc, when Hiruzen Sarutobi, facing Orochimaru's near immortality through body transfer and regeneration, uses the technique as a final measure to permanently neutralize a threat that could not be defeated through ordinary ninjutsu or taijutsu, immediately establishing the Reaper Death Seal narrative's role as a counter to otherwise unstoppable opponents. Although Sarutobi fails to see Orochimaru's entire soul, he manages to take the portion of Orochimaru's soul that lets his arms function. This, in turn, removed him as a threat without killing him, making sure he could never make another hand sign to use jutsu again. Although this did not kill the rogue snake ninja and he eventually regained control of his arms, he fought through excruciating pain and limited access to ninjutsu for that time. Hiruzen also used this technique to neutralize the reanimated bodies of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, doing so using 2 shadow clones. The technique appears again during a flashback of the Nine Tails attack on Konoha, when Minato Namikaze employs it to divide Kuroma's chakra, sealing half of it into himself and the other half into Naruto, demonstrating that the jutsu is capable of not only killing or sealing human targets, but also of manipulating and imprisoning the chakra of a tailed beast with absolute precision. Functionally, the Reaper Death Seal operates through a multi-stage soul binding process that begins when the user forms the necessary hand seals and summons the Shinigami behind themselves, positioning the Death God so that it can reach through the caster's body without harming it, and directly grasp the target's soul, a process that bypasses all physical defenses, chakra cloaks, armor, regeneration, durability, and immortality techniques because none of those protections extend to the soul itself. Once contact is made, the Shinigami forcibly extracts the victim's soul from their body, seals it within its stomach, a containment method that prevents the soul from passing onto the afterlife or Pure Lands, reincarnating, or being revived through techniques such as Iru Tensei, making the Reaper Death Seal one of the few abilities in the series that explicitly denies resurrection. Simultaneously, the Shinigami claims the caster's soul as payment, either immediately upon completion of the sealing or progressively during the process, ensuring that the technique cannot be exploited or repeated and reinforcing its status as a mutually destructive act. The 2 souls involved in the ritual are also forced to fight for all eternity within the Shinigami's stomach. The effectiveness of the Reaper Death Seal is influenced by several practical limitations, including the requirements that the user be in close proximity to physically restrain the target long enough for the soul extraction to complete, the possibility that exceptionally powerful or resilient souls may resist long enough to result in partial sealing, and the unavoidable death of the caster regardless of success, as demonstrated in the aforementioned encounter between Hiruzen and Orochimaru. Power disparities, chakra reserves, physical strength, and combat skill become irrelevant in the face of the Reaper Death Seal, allowing even a significantly weaker shinobi to permanently eliminate an overwhelmingly powerful enemy if the seal is completed successfully. Souls can only be freed from the Shinigami's stomach by using Dead Demon Consuming Seal Release. To use this, an individual wears the Shinigami mask, causing them to become possessed by the Shinigami. If the individual wearing the mask slices open their own stomach, the Shinigami will do the same, and any souls inside it will be freed. However, the mask doesn't have any properties that will prevent its user from dying of that injury. When Orochimaru uses this to restore his arms, he survives the injury by switching bodies once again. Although a technique that guarantees death on a target, the fact that the technique is extremely limited in its range, killing potential as in most cases is only used on a single person, and the trade-off is the own user's life, this makes it to where the Reaper Death Seal falls to number 7 on this list.
Just cutting in here really quick, I recently partnered up with GamerSupps. A lot of you might have already heard about GamerSupps before. They're like the go-to for energy supplements for gamers and people that enjoy anime and manga. Pretty big in the community. It's a product with 0 sugar, less than 1 carb, and less than 1 calorie, so it's keto friendly and diabetic safe. So this is pretty big because I used to drink a lot of energy drinks, and it's both healthier and cheaper than just straight up buying energy drinks from the gas station or something. And on top of that, I'm sure some of you may love this. They also have these like very aesthetic waifu cups that of course are anime themed because, you know, waifu. And what's really cool is if you click the link in my description and use my code AnimeX, you'll get 10% off your order, and on top of that, you'll be helping this channel greatly. I wouldn't be recommending this stuff to you guys if I didn't use it myself. I literally drink it every day. Like, I'm drinking it right now as I record this video. The flavors are good, the service is amazing, you get your stuff very quickly. So make sure to use the link in my description and use my code to save some money.
6. The 8 Gates, Gate of Death. The 8 Gates, Gate of Death, also known as the 8 Gates Release Formation, is the final and most lethal stage of the 8 Gates technique, representing the absolute physical limit of the human body and functioning as a self-destructive release mechanism that converts the user's life force directly into raw combat power. The 8 Gates themselves are not ninjutsu or genjutsu, but a taijutsu-based system that removes the natural chakra and muscle limiters imposed by the body to prevent self-destruction. Meaning, the Gate of Death is not powered by external chakra manipulation, but by forcibly overriding the body's biological safeguards. The origin of the 8 Gates technique are not explicitly tied to a single creator, but is implied to be an ancient combat discipline developed to allow non-ninjutsu specialists to rival high-level shinobi through extreme physical conditioning and mastery of chakra flow, with the Gate of Death representing a technique that was never intended for survival. Before opening the 8th gate, a shinobi must train intensively to master the previous 7, starting with the Gate of Opening, located in the brain's left hemisphere, which removes the user's mental inhibitions. Opening this gate allows the user to perform the Front Lotus, a technique that tires them afterward. The Gate of Healing, located in the brain's right hemisphere, increases the user's physical strength. This has the added effect of re-energizing the body, enabling it to rapidly recover from exhaustion. The Gate of Life, located on the spinal cord, turns the user's skin red when open due to rapid blood flow. Other effects include the user's pupils disappearing, their hair standing on end, and bulging veins all over their body. Opening this gate allows the user to perform the Reverse Lotus. In the anime, the chakra release is enough to create a buffer zone to allow safe passage through severe adverse weather. The Gate of Pain is located on the spinal cord. Rock Lee opens this gate as he's about to use the Reverse Lotus, seemingly to increase his speed. As he performs the Reverse Lotus, his muscles start to tear. Opening this gate on this occasion also causes Lee's nose to start bleeding. This is when the negative effects of the 8 gates becomes a real issue for the user. The Gate of Limit is located in the abdomen. Rock Lee opens this gate as he's about to deliver the final blow of the Reverse Lotus, seemingly to increase his strength. After completing the Reverse Lotus, Lee's limbs receive compound fractures. The Gate of Joy, located in the stomach, increases all the user's abilities. The power that emanates from the user is enough to displace surrounding bodies of water. Opening this gate allows this user to perform the Morning Peacock, wherein the user's punches are so fast that friction with the air produces flames. Opening this gate has sometimes been shown to create an aura around the user. In the anime, the aura is green. The Gate of Wonder, located below the stomach, causes the user's body to secrete a blue sweat. The sweat immediately evaporates, creating an aura around the user that can be mistaken for chakra. Opening this gate allows the user to perform the Daytime Tiger, a single punch that creates a pocket of compressed air. After opening this gate, Guy's muscle fibers rupture, causing him intense pain if anyone touches him. The final gate, the Gate of Death, is located at the heart. Users open this gate by puncturing their chest with their thumb in order to direct the chakra there. While open, the user's heart pumps at maximum speed, granting them power 100 times greater than they're usually capable of, even far beyond that of the 5 Kagean Might Guy's case. Opening this gate allows the user to perform the Evening Elephant and Night Guy. This technique first appears during the 4th Great Ninja War, when Might Guy activates it in combat against Madara Uchiha, marking the only canonical instance of the Gate of Death being fully open and immediately establishing it as one of the most destructive single-user techniques in the series. Once open, the user's blood begins to boil due to extreme internal friction and accelerated metabolism, producing a visible red vapor that surrounds the body and is composed of vaporized blood rather than chakra alone. Functionally, the Gate of Death multiplies the user's speed, strength, reaction time, and striking power to a level that allows direct physical combat with god-tier opponents, enabling movements so fast they distort space through sheer momentum and attacks that generate shockwaves capable of reshaping the battlefield without the use of ninjutsu. The technique culminates in Night Guy, a concentrated taijutsu strike in which the user compresses all remaining life force into a single kick, bending space around the point of impact and delivering damage through both physical force and momentum distortion, an effect powerful enough to severely injure Madara despite his status as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, and possession of regenerative and truth-seeking defenses. Unlike techniques that rely on chakra output or destructive area of effect attacks, the Gate of Death is lethal because it bypasses durability scaling entirely, converting the user's body into a living weapon whose attacks cannot be meaningfully blocked or absorbed once contact is made. The cost of this power is absolute. Opening the 8th gate guarantees death as the heart is pushed beyond functional capacity, muscle fibers rupture beyond repair, bones fracture under strain, and internal organs fail due to sustained overload, with the body continuing to fight only because it has not yet received the signal to shut down. Unlike the 7th gate, which causes severe injury but allows survival with medical intervention, the Gate of Death leaves no margin for recovery, as the technique is designed to consume the user's remaining lifespan in minutes rather than years. The user's body literally continues to burn so hot that it eventually crumbles to ash. The only reason my guy survives after using the Gate of Death is due to, well, plot armor in the form of Naruto's 6th-pouch chakra, which restores Guy's life force after the technique is already concluded. The Gate of Death has several critical limitations that prevent its widespread use, including the requirement for extraordinary physical conditioning to even survive opening the lower gates, the inability to deactivate the 8th gate once open, the extremely short combat window before total bodily failure, and the fact that the technique can only be used once per lifetime. Although it has the same ultimate drawback as the Reaper Death Seal, its lethality lies in its certainty and scale relative to the user, as it allows a human shinobi with no reliance on bloodline abilities, tailed beast, or divine chakra to temporarily surpass nearly every other combatant in raw physical combat, making it one of the few techniques in the series that can directly challenge god-tier entities without exploiting sealing, reality manipulation, or soul-based mechanics. In theory, a user can take out a limitless number of opponents until their life force runs out, giving it a much larger scale of destructive potential. 5. Kamui. Kamui is one of the most lethal and conceptually broken space-time ninjutsu in Naruto, being a Mangekyo Sharingan jutsu and functioning as a localized dimensional manipulation technique that allows the user to erase matter, displace targets, or render themselves untouchable by partially removing their existence from the physical world. The technique originates from the Mangekyo Sharingan of Obito Uchiha, though it is also wielded through the eye transplantation by Kakashi Hatake, with each user accessing a different functional aspect of the same underlying ability. Kakashi had received Obito's left eye after Obito's body had been half crushed during a mission when they were young genin. On the verge of death, Obito gifted his eye to Kakashi, although it was later revealed he survived the injury. Kamui first appears during Naruto Shippuden when Kakashi unknowingly activates it under extreme stress, initially presenting it as a long-range distortion technique that twists space around a target and seemingly crushes it, though it is later revealed that this destruction is actually forced spatial displacement into a separate pocket dimension. As the series progresses, Kamui is fully contextualized as a space-time technique that connects the user's eye directly to a sealed dimension that exists independently of the normal world, allowing matter, chakra, and living beings to be selectively warped in or out. Mechanically, Kamui operates by creating a spatial vortex at a focal point determined by the user's line of sight, rotating space itself rather than generating physical force, which allows it to bypass durability, armor, chakra defenses, and regeneration entirely, since the target is not damaged but removed from reality. When used offensively, Kamui can erase entire body parts instantly, as seen when limbs, torsos, or weapons are warped away with no visible wound left behind, resulting in immediate incapacitation or death depending on what is removed. Kakashi's version of Kamui specializes in long-range targeting, allowing him to warp objects or enemies from a distance, though it requires precise aim, intense concentration, and massive chakra expenditure, initially limiting its use to 1 or 2 activations before exhaustion. Obito's version, by contrast, grants short-range Kamui and self-targeting, enabling him to warp his own body parts or part of it into the Kamui dimension, creating the illusion of intangibility by phasing attacks through himself rather than blocking or dodging them. This makes Obito effectively untouchable during activation windows, as physical attacks, ninjutsu, chakra constructs, and even explosions pass harmlessly through the portions of his body that have been displaced into the alternate dimension. The lethality of Kamui is amplified by the fact that its defensive and offensive applications are linked to the same mechanism, allowing Obito to attack while remaining immune to counterattacks, or to remove opponents from the battlefield entirely by warping them into a dimension from which escape is nearly impossible without possessing Kamui itself. The Kamui dimension is a sealed empty space with no natural exits, meaning targets warped there are effectively imprisoned indefinitely unless the user retrieves them or another Kamui user opens a portal. Unlike sealing jutsu that rely on physical bindings or barriers, Kamui imprisonment is absolute, because it relies on spatial separation rather than containment, and even powerful entities are rendered helpless once displaced. Despite its overwhelming power, Kamui has strict mechanical limitations that prevent it from being completely unstoppable. Sustained intangibility has a time limit, forcing Obito to periodically rematerialize. Using Kamui repeatedly drains chakra at a severe rate. Precise timing is required to avoid being hit during materialization windows, and the technique cannot be used simultaneously for full intangibility and large-scale offensive warping without leaving openings. These weaknesses are exploited only by opponents with extraordinary speed, intelligence, or intimate knowledge of Kamui's mechanics, making it nearly invincible against most conventional shinobi. Kamui's deadliness is further emphasized by his resistance to counterplay, as barriers, regeneration, durability scaling, and even tail beast cloaks offer no protection against spatial erasure. And once a target is partially warped, the damage cannot be healed because the removed matter no longer exists in the same plane. When both eyes Kamui are used on the same target, whether by a single user or by 2 users working together, the teleportation speed is doubled. The power of both eyes also grants the user the ability to generate large portals that can allow others to travel through. While Kamui ordinarily only connects its dimension with the Earth, the user can synchronize Kamui with other space-time ninjutsu, allowing the user to travel to the other ninjutsu's target dimension. Opening portals to those other dimensions requires a great deal of chakra. The 2 powers of Kamui can be used separately, even if to achieve a unified purpose. Obito once used the left Kamui to synchronize with Yomotsu Hirasaka, then used the right Kamui to teleport to its associated dimension. With the 2 Mangekyo, users can also perform Susanoo, through which they can create Kamui Shuriken. 4. Ito Tensei. The summoning impure world reincarnation, or Ito Tensei, is a jutsu that brings a dead person's soul back by binding it to a living body, making them do whatever the summoner wants. Tobirama Senju created it, but later declared it a forbidden jutsu. Orochimaru found it years later and improved it. Ultimately, it was Kabuto who almost completely eliminated all flaws, bettering the impure world reincarnation to such a degree that the reincarnation's power levels were nearly identical to how they were during life, as well as allowing the caster to control as many reincarnations at a time as they wished, resources permitting. His improvements, combined with the fact that performing the impure world reincarnation requires no chakra from the users, causes Kabuto to declare it the most powerful jutsu in history. The soul being summoned must be in the Pure Land, so if they're stuck in places like the Shinigami stomach, they can't be reincarnated. It also needs a living sacrifice to act as a vessel for the revived soul. To perform the jutsu, the summoner smears the DNA of the person they want to revive on a special scroll. When activated, dust and ash cover the sacrifice's body, turning them into the reincarnated person at the moment of their death. The sacrifice is still technically alive, but they lose control of their body until the jutsu is undone, at which point they die. The reincarnated can move around like regular fighters, or they can be summoned to a location inside coffins. The summoner can restrict their movement at first, but can store and recall them when needed. If the jutsu is perfected, strong souls may resist control, like Tobirama, or even break free, like Hashirama, without extra binding methods. To fully control them, the summoner has to place a special talisman, often on a kunai, in the reincarnated person's brain, with varying levels of control depending on the talisman's strength. The revived keep their personality and can approach tasks with some freedom, but at the highest level of control, the summoner can directly control their actions, even speaking through them or making them summon others. A big advantage of this jutsu is that the Revive have immortal bodies, healing from any damage and constantly refilling their chakra reserves, so they can fight endlessly. Sometimes the Revived are brought back stronger than they were in life. Kabuto, for example, enhanced Madara's body by picking the best attributes from different points in his life. Killing the summoner doesn't stop the jutsu, but there are 3 guaranteed ways to end it. Using the dead demon consuming seal to remove the revived soul, having the summoner end the jutsu, or giving the reincarnated person emotional closure so they can break free. If the jutsu can't be broken, another option is to neutralize the revive. In the 4th Shinobi World War, the Allied Shinobi forces developed a method to seal the revived so they couldn't move. Some special tools, like the Beni Hasago and the Kohaku no Johei, can seal them completely. There have been cases of the revived breaking free of their summoner's control. Itachi, for instance, was targeted by Shisui's Kodo Amatsukami, which overrode Kabuto's control. Also, if a revived person knows the hand seals, they can cut their contract with the summoner while keeping their immortal body and free will. Obito also took control of Kabuto's revived Jinchuriki using black receivers, effectively wresting away Kabuto's control over them. Kabuto's large-scale deployment of the jutsu demonstrated its true strategic horror, as he resurrected dozens of legendary shinobi simultaneously, including former Kage, Akatsuki members, and elite clan figures, each operating with full access to their original abilities and combat knowledge. Battle against reincarnated shinobi, such as the 2nd Mizukage, 3rd Raikage, and 2nd Tsuchikage showed how devastating the jutsu was in practice, as even coordinated divisions struggled to neutralize opponents who could regenerate instantly from fatal damage and continue fighting without exhaustion. The 3rd Raikage, for example, single-handedly stalled an entire division due to his near impenetrable defense and immortal body. Similarly, the 2nd Mizukage's illusion-based fighting style became even more dangerous under Edo Tensei, as destroying his body provided no lasting progress, requiring precise analysis and teamwork to identify and immobilize the true summoning core. Madara Uchiha's reincarnation represented the pinnacle of the jutsu's lethality, as Kabuto intentionally modified his body beyond its original state, restoring his youth, granting him Hashirama cells, and allowing him to overwhelm the allied shinobi forces before he was even fully revived. Even when Madara broke free of Kabuto's control entirely, the jutsu remained active. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Itachi Uchiha's revival highlighted the jutsu's psychological weakness, as his personality, values, and emotional closure ultimately led him to act against Kabuto, using his temporary existence to undo the Edo Tensei technique itself. Either way, the potential to bring back broken shinobi from history, with unlimited chakra reserves and regeneration, and no chakra strain on the user, makes this a jutsu that could cause countless casualties fairly easily. 3. Particle-style atomic dismantling jutsu. Particle-style atomic dismantling jutsu, more commonly referred to as dust release, is a truly rare and lethal technique, giving the user the ability to completely disassemble matter at the atomic level, making it one of the few techniques in the series where successful activation almost equates to immediate and irreversible death. Dust release is a rare Keki Tota created through the simultaneous fusion of 3 nature transformations: earth, wind, and fire, placing it above standard Keki Genkai and making it accessible only to shinobi with extraordinary chakra control and access to at least 3 chakra natures. The technique's origins trace back to Mu, the 2nd Tsuchikage, who developed and wielded dust release during his lifetime, later passing the knowledge to his successor, the 3rd Tsuchikage Onoki. The jutsu functions by generating a 3-dimensional geometric field, most commonly depicted as a cube, cone, or prism, within which all matter is subject to atomic level separation, causing anything caught inside to be reduced to particulate dust and erased from existence. Unlike techniques that rely on heat, pressure, or force, dust release does not burn, crush, or blast its target. Instead, it dismantles the atomic bonds holding matter together. The jutsu requires precise spatial control, as the user must accurately define the boundaries of the disintegration field. But once formed, escape is nearly impossible without extraordinary speed or teleportation, as the effect is instantaneous upon full containment. Onoki is first seen using it during the 5 Kage summit against Sasuke. The jutsu would have certainly killed him if not for Obito's intervention. Its deadliness becomes even more pronounced during Onoki's confrontation with Madara Uchiha, where dust release is one of the few techniques capable of meaningfully threatening Madara's Susanoo and physical form. forcing him to actively evade rather than tank the attack. The technique's effectiveness is further contextualized through Mu's Ito Tensei appearance, where he uses dust release with even greater efficiency due to the infinite chakra regeneration granted by the reanimation. Normally, the technique can only be used a handful of times due to its massive chakra depletion. Also, as shown when Mu and Inoki use dust release on each other, the technique can negate itself and lead to a massive explosion of charged chakra. The jutsu's limitations are strictly tied to the user rather than the technique itself. It requires immense chakra reserves, exacting control, and physical stability, which is why Inoki's advanced age and chronic back injuries frequently limit how often he can use it. Additionally, dust release requires a brief moment of formation and focus, meaning extremely fast or spatially mobile opponents can evade it if they recognize the threat early enough, like in Sasuke's case, though this window is extremely narrow. 2. Truth-Seeking Orbs. Truth-Seeking Orbs is a 6-pass level technique comprised of all 5 basic nature transformations combined with yin-yang release, granting them the unique ability to erase matter, chakra, and ninjutsu. The technique originates from the power of the Sage of Six Paths, and manifests only in individuals who possess Six Paths chakra. It first appeared during the 4th Great Ninja War through Ten Tails Jinchuriki, such as Obito Uchiha and later Madara Uchiha, before being wielded by Naruto Uzumaki after receiving Six Paths Sage Mode. Unlike conventional ninjutsu constructs, truth-seeking orbs are not elemental projectiles or chakra blasts, but malleable spheres of condensed chakra that can freely change shape into shields, blades, staff, projectiles, or barriers, all while retaining their defining property of nullification. They negate any chakra-based phenomenon they come in contact with, causing ninjutsu, chakra constructs, and even regeneration techniques to collapse on contact, effectively erasing targets rather than damaging them. Since truth-seeking balls encompass the power of all 5 basic natures, they surpass both Keki Genkai and Keki Tota, which utilize 2 and 3 chakra natures respectively. By combining the various natures inside the orbs, it is possible to produce a variety of effects. They are capable of instantly turning anything they touch into dust in a manner similar to dust release, though this does not always occur. If imbued with a certain yin-yang release jutsu, the orbs can nullify any ninjutsu they touch, and thus become impervious to it. This includes negating the regenerative qualities of impure world reincarnation, making it possible to permanently damage and kill those reincarnated by the technique. However, the orbs are incapable of nullifying senjutsu, as according to Naruto, natural energy can be used to combat itself. Naruto can use truth-seeking balls to create his tail beast ball Rasen Shuriken. Similarly, Obito was able to convert one of his orbs into black receivers, allowing him to use the 6 red yang formation. While in their default sphere form, the orbs can be launched as high-speed projectiles, expanded to enormous sizes in an instant. Whatever their shape, users can only control the orbs within 70 meters of their location, allowing opponents to disable them by transporting them elsewhere. If the user is killed or similarly incapacitated, their truth-seeking balls will disintegrate alongside any black receivers they created. Truth-seeking balls can be controlled individually or combined together. In both cases, by understanding the power of all things in nature, the orb can be shaped into a variety of forms. Because the high-density chakra is in a condensed state, it can be pulled and stretched into a smooth and flat consistency, as well as freely manipulated into any other shape. Hiruzen Sarutobi theorized that there is a limit to how long the orbs can maintain a certain shape, though this was never confirmed. Most users are able to reshape their truth-seeking balls without any special effort, though Obito does so by passing them through holes that temporarily form in his hands. Orbs can also wrap around the user's body to form a protective shell. Though highly durable, this defense can still be broken by attacks that cannot be nullified, such as powerful senjutsu and taijutsu like the opening of the 8th gate. However, within those bounds, the jutsu bypasses virtually every survival mechanic in the series, including durability, regeneration, ceiling resistance, and elemental counters, making them lethal not because they kill quickly, but because they make survival categorically impossible once contact is made. The reason truth-seeking orbs gets placed above particle style, despite both being able to erase anything it touches, is the fact that this jutsu contains much more defensive and offensive versatility and seemingly requires a shorter charge time than dust release. Honorable mentions. Among Naruto's non-canon material, several techniques and entities stand out as uniquely lethal due to how they distort, amplify, or industrialize chakra, making them worthy honorable mentions, although they don't follow the canon of the story. Beginning with the Zero Tails Chakra Devourer from Naruto Shippuden, the movie, bonds. A pseudo-tailed beast that differs fundamentally from the nine-tailed beast in that it's not a natural chakra life form, but a construct born entirely from accumulative negative emotions, such as hatred, fear, and despair. Zero Tails does not require a Jinchuriki in the traditional sense. Instead, it anchors itself to a host or location and continuously feeds on the emotional and chakra output of those nearby, passively draining chakra from shinobi over a wide area while converting that energy directly into raw destructive power. This makes it exceptionally lethal in prolonged conflicts, as every attempt to fight it only increases the emotional intensity it feeds on, allowing it to grow stronger while its opponents grow weaker. Unlike tail beasts that rely on brute force attacks, the Zero Tails functions as a war of attrition weapon, capable of killing indirectly by exhausting chakra reserves to the point to where victims collapse or die. In a similar sense, the Jutsu Fury, as seen in episode 144 Naruto Shippuden, is another form of jutsu that causes large-scale destruction akin to a militarized superweapon. It's a technique that creates a massive explosion, capable of wiping out an entire village. It was developed by Ino Gyoja. His granddaughter, Hotaru, had the kenjutsu implanted on her back. Before the technique can be performed, the user must first gather a large amount of chakra by using the Tsuchigumo style Forbidden Life technique release, creation of heaven and earth to power it. Seeing the technique's enormous potential as a weapon of mass destruction, the third Hokage proclaimed this as a kenjutsu, so as to keep his village safe. In exchange for declaring Fury as a kenjutsu, the third Hokage and Enyo Goja made a treaty that Konoha will lend aid to the Tsuchigumo clan in times of need. Despite the technique's power, Utakata was able to absorb all of its power and destroy it by using his tailed beast mode. Infinite Tsukuyomi. Infinite Tsukuyomi functions as a planet-scale genjutsu that enslaves every living being simultaneously by hijacking their consciousness and binding their bodies to the divine tree, making it uniquely lethal, not through immediate physical destruction, but through absolute, irreversible domination of life itself. The technique originates from the power of the Rinne Sharingan and traces back to Kaguya Otsutsuki, who first cast it in ancient times after consuming the chakra fruit of the divine tree, establishing it as a pre-shinobi god-level ability that predates the modern chakra system entirely. Her use of it resulted in the creation of an army of white Zetsu, which were originally the bodies of people trapped in the original Infinite Tsukuyomi. This jutsu later reemerges through Madara Uchiha, who orchestrates the Fourth Great Ninja War with the explicit goal of reviving and casting this technique once more, being the ultimate endpoint of the Eye of the Moon plan. The jutsu first appears in its completed form when Madara awakens the Rinne Sharingan and reflects its light off the moon, using the lunar body as a massive conduit to broadcast the genjutsu across the entire planet simultaneously. Mechanically, Infinite Tsukuyomi activates when the Rinne Sharingan's chakra is projected onto the moon, which then refracts and amplifies the genjutsu's effect, bathing the world in a specific light pattern that penetrates all defenses and places every exposed living being under genjutsu instantly, regardless of distance, power level, or awareness. Unlike conventional genjutsu, which manipulates chakra flow through eye contact or localized influence, Infinite Tsukuyomi operates on a planetary scale and does not require the user to directly perceive individual targets, making evasion functionally impossible once activation conditions are met. Upon exposure, victims are immobilized and suspended in cocoon-like bindings formed from the divine tree's roots, which physically restrain the body while simultaneously extracting chakra and sustaining the illusion. The genjutsu itself traps each individual within a personalized dream state that fulfills their deepest desires, regrets, or idealized reality, ensuring psychological compliance and preventing resistance by making victims unwilling to awaken. Functionally, Infinite Tsukuyomi converts all affected life into a resource, as the divine tree drains chakra continuously from trapped victims, eventually reducing them to husk and transforming their stolen chakra into power for the Otsutsuki lineage or the chakra fruit itself. This process reveals the technique's true lethality. While death is not immediate, it is guaranteed, as prolonged entrapment results in total chakra depletion and biological collapse, making Infinite Tsukuyomi a slow extinction event rather than a conventional attack. The technique does not discriminate between shinobi and civilians, humans and animals, or allies and enemies, meaning its activation effectively ends all independent life on the planet in a single moment. Unlike sealing techniques or battlefield-scale jutsu, Infinite Tsukuyomi has no practical counter once deployed. Traditional genjutsu release methods are useless because victims cannot perform hand signs, disrupt chakra flow, or receive external interference while immobilized. Immunity is limited to a handful of exceptions, such as individuals shielded by Six Paths Chakra, those not exposed to the moon's light, or entities already removed from the planet's dimensional plane. The technique's only meaningful weakness lies in preventing its activation entirely or severing the divine tree after deployment, both of which require god-tier power and precise timing. Narratively, Infinite Tsukuyomi served as the ultimate ideological weapon in Naruto's exploration of peace through domination versus peace through coexistence. Being an ability that can conquer and eventually kill all life on the entire planet, the Infinite Tsukuyomi can't be placed anywhere lower than number 1.